Hey guys, XanixSDC here. Today I'm going to show you how to debug Android applications. Debugging is a very important skill that is necessary in order to successfully develop applications. For those of you that don't know what debugging is when you go step by step through each and every line of code to see if your logic and your flow of code is correctly working. It can be used to track down certain variables and other important aspects of your application. So, let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is open up Eclipse. Open the file that you want to debug. In this case, I'm opening the startmenu.java. Now, the whole concept of debugging revolves around setting up breakpoints. Breakpoints are places in the code where you cause the code to stop while you're debugging it. You cannot look at every line of code as it's running. That would be very inefficient. But what a breakpoint does is if you set a breakpoint, as the code is running, when it reaches that point in the code, it will stop, and you will be allowed to see what's going on. So let's look for a place to keep a breakpoint. How about right here? What I'm doing is I'm creating a sprite, and I am going to add a breakpoint right here on the click listener. So click on Run. First of all, click on Start. Click on the line you want to add the breakpoint to, right? Make sure that's selected. Then click on Run at the top and click Toggle Line Breakpoint. As you can see, a breakpoint appeared right here, this little blue dot. That means when we debug the code, the flow will stop at that point. Let's add one more breakpoint. As you can see, when this sprite is getting clicked, we're calling this function called toggle. Let's go add a breakpoint inside toggle itself. Toggle. Okay, let's add a breakpoint here as well. So click on this, click run, and then toggle line breakpoint. Breakpoint appeared. Okay, cool. We should be set now. The next thing you're going to want to do is actually start debugging. So to open the debug perspective, come to the top right corner and click on this button, open perspective, and then click on debug. Makes a lot of sense, right? So now as you can see, the entire window changed, and there are a lot of new perspectives open up that you can look into. This right here is our original code. As you can see, it's a startmenu.java, and it's got all our code. This here, the debug, shows the different threads that will run, meaning what applications are running. And right here, this window shows all the different variables that are there in your app while it's running. So the first thing you're going to want to do is click on debug. Right now, I already started it up just for the sake of time in this tutorial. So click debug, or click on this arrow and click on the project name that you want to debug. It should start up, and this should populate with threads and that kind of stuff. The next concept I'm going to want to explain is the concept of flow of code. Hopefully you guys know what flow of code is. It's when it's the way the machine runs through your actual code, right? The lines of code. So during debugging, you have to keep moving through the code, and it will stop at certain points which you've specified, called breakpoints. Like right here, we specified that breakpoint, right? So to manipulate the flow of code, there are several things you can do. As you can see, what we've done here is we have the app has started running, and we have stopped at this point. Final animated sprite face, blah blah blah. Just to show you what's going on, right now it's blank, right? So we're going to tell the app to continue running on its own until we intervene later. To do that, you just click resume. What that'll do is, rather than walking you line by line through what you wanted to look at, it'll just keep running until the next breakpoint. So let's click resume. Again, it took us to the next breakpoint. Click resume, and now if you look, this should start up. Just resume. There. Okay? As you can see, the app has started up. Now, the next thing we're going to want to do is, as you can see, we're stuck in this sort of loop now. It's just going to keep running until we apply the next sort of stimulus, right? If we click, what we did before is we specified that when we click on this, it should take us to another breakpoint. We specified a breakpoint, so let's click on this. Okay, as you can see, it took us to another breakpoint we had specified. Whatever code this is hard to understand, but the main concept I want to convey is how the flow of code works. You can either click resume and just walk through and then have the code just run through it, but then you're not really going to get a diagnostic of what's actually happening. So in order to walk step by step through the code, you have to use these buttons right here. Step over and step into. What step over does is that step over just moves on to the next line. While it runs the code and moves on to the next line. While step into, it actually goes into a function, as if like, see this function unmute that I have defined that function below. If you were to click step over when you reach that function, it'll just run the function automatically and walk through it. But if you were to click step into, it would actually go into the function and show you what's going on. So let's click step over to move to the next line of code. Okay, it moved here to this toggle box, etc., etc. Step over once again. If isMuted is equal to true, let's see by the way, this is the variables panel, so over here you can monitor variables. Like right now we're looking at this variable isMuted, right? Well, here it is muted. Right now its current value is 0, so it should skip over this. Let's see, step over, skipped. Okay, now it's over here. So if isMuted is equal to 0, well, it is equal to 0, so it should run this mute code. So let's step into this. Okay, and now we've reached mute, and once you click step into, it should take you to the mute function. Just watch. Okay, see, public void mute, another function. We have now just stepped into the function that was called, and let's see what it does. So it is setting isMuted to 1. Right now it's 0, so but if we click step over, it should set that. Now it's 1. See? So basically step over and step into help you walk yourself through the code and see what's happening. Now you know that when the isMuted function is getting called, the mute function is getting called, isMuted is being set to 1. So let's step over, and now it should bring us back to our original code. See, it brought us back to the the previous thing. We were right here before, now we're over here. The basic concept I wanted to show you guys during this whole thing was the concept of step over and step into. Step over is just to, I would like to review, step over is just to move on to the next line and execute the code, while step into is to actually walk into, actually start up different functions and see what they're doing. So we can just click resume, and resume will just play on with the code without and stop at the next breakpoint. This is pretty much it. That's all you need to know about debugging. You just have to set the correct breakpoints and then use these 3 buttons. Step over, step into, and resume. You should be able to then walk yourself through your code and see whether certain glitches are happening or what is wrong and that kind of stuff. It is a very helpful diagnostic because you get a first-hand look at what is actually happening in your code. Debugging is a skill that every programmer needs to know. I hope you found this tutorial to be helpful. If you liked it, then please subscribe to my channel, ZenXSTC. I really appreciate your comments and likes. Thank you.